This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. From streaming to shopping, Prime helps you get more out of your passions. So whether you're a fan of true crime or prefer a nail-biting novel from time to time, with services like Prime Video, Amazon Music, and fast free delivery, Prime makes it easy to get more out of whatever you're into or getting into. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to learn more.
Today's episode is brought to you by SalesCred Pro, the strategic resource for B2B sales that fortifies your credibility and accelerates the trust building needed for building successful business relationships. Get your free 7-day trial now at salescred.com/pro. Welcome to the Manage Smarter podcast with hosts C. Lee Smith and Audrey Strong. We're glad you're here for discussions on new ways to manage smarter, hire, develop, and retain talent, improve results, and propel team performance to new heights. This is the Manage Smarter podcast.
Lee, in friendships, in marriage, in the workplace. Oh, when you have you're lifting weights at the gym and somebody's spotting your bar with 200 pounds on it. What does it all require? Trust.
Trust. Yes.
That's
and this is an area that I'm very passionate about. Primarily, I focus on credibility, which is needed to build trust, and of course, then trust needed to build influence to be able then to get people to make changes that are important to them. And so I've been wanting to talk to Tracy for a while, so I'm delighted to have her on the show today.
We are lucky to have her live from Florida, everyone. Welcome to Manage Smarter. We are so glad you're here. My name is Audrey Strong. I'm the Senior Vice President of Communications here at Sales Fuel.
And I'm C. Lee Smith. I am the CEO and founder of Sales Fuel.
All right, so bringing in more than 30 years in training, consulting, and professional development, Tracy LaLonde's courses, keynotes, and guidance propel professionals to success. Early days were spent in the consulting industry, and then she transitioned to the legal field, but her career has always been focused on helping others grow. Now, she's got a couple books. One's called The Joy Achiever Journey, Alleviate Burnout and Design Your Life for More Joy. That's a roadmap to help cultivate a better work-life balance. That's a different show. We're going to have her back before we even got started on this one. Yeah. And the latest book is called Trust Me, The Insider's Guide to Being a Go-To Person at Work, preparing readers to elevate their standing and effectiveness. So trust and credibility, you guys are like two peas in a pod.
Yeah.
On this a little bit. And the ROI at the workplace, Tracy, welcome, by the way, is
Thank you.
If you have the trust, what are the benefits?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. There's so many. And the good part about it is that there's social science to back it up. So it's not just us trying to inform people. So things like 50% higher productivity, 76% higher engagement, 40% lower burnout, 74% less stress. I mean, it's all these kinds of things that once you do the math, you can quickly and relatively easily figure out how they impact your bottom line.
And those are all stats that have been validated by the Harvard Business Review, right? So this is not just us making up stats like you hear some guy on a radio commercial, whatever, just making up stats or whatever. This is real life. So
yeah.
So Tracy, in my experience, are mostly two types of people. There are those that give trust until you do something to break it, or you have the people that don't give away trust at first, making you earn it through your behavior, and so that you have to overcome their skepticism through your actions. So you've done some research in this area. What have you found?
Yeah. It's interesting because what most people don't realize is that trust is a physiological phenomenon. So when I extend trust to you, and mind you, I'm not going to give you the account numbers to my bank account, right? But I'm going to trust you in small ways that are less risky. But what that does is that releases oxytocin in your brain. And oxytocin is the bonding or connection or love hormone, depending on the context. And that makes you like me and want to trust me in return. And then when you trust me back, it releases oxytocin in my brain, and we get this nice reciprocal nature going on. So I encourage folks to begin by giving trust, because when you wall it off and you make someone earn it, we never get that natural physiological experience to happen.
But even if it doesn't have to be total trust, though, trust in some small way to start. So maybe one of my favorite things, Audrey knows this or whatever, is like, I'm not a big believer in the either or. I'm also a big believer in, both things can be true or none of the above can be true. And I think this could be an area where both things could actually work in tandem together. What do you think?
Well, absolutely. I mean, just take delegation as a simplest example. It's delegating a task. By the way, how I delegate is important. That makes or break trust as well. So giving you a clear expectation of what I expect, potentially how I want it done if it needs to be done in a specific way and what success looks like, and then letting you go, not delegating and dumping, staying close but not micromanaging. So it's that balance that you're talking about, but I need to take that trust step that you are capable and competent in order to do it, or not. If you struggle, take it back. Because that's what a lot of managers do too. Like, oh, you're struggling. Oh, you know what? I'll finish it for you. Or you made that error. You know what? I'll fix it. Like, no, that's not where folks learn. And that's not where you can continue to build the trust, showing them how to get to the end result rather than taking it back.
So if I'm a manager and I want to, for lack of a better term, audit my team trustworthy myself, do a self-check, but then also, what are the ways that I look for signs that someone is trustworthy or not in my department?
Yeah, well, there's a number. Number one, are they competent and capable? So do they have the skill set? Now, if someone's new and learning, we need to take that into consideration.
Sure.
But are they relatively error-free and or trying to grow their skill set? Integrity is another one. So are people doing what they say they're going to do? That comes in the form of meeting deadlines, delivering a high quality, those kinds of things. There's also, believing that folks can operate on their own and demonstrating and communicating in that process. So communication and transparency, is a really big one of keeping you informed as things are going on. Or I always say people like bad news better than they like surprises. So if something's happening there, raising it early, or if I make a mistake, how I own and take responsibility for that mistake, and also communicating that mistake. Am I trying to hide it, or am I trying to own it and move it forward? And also then showing you how I'm not going to make that mistake in the future.
I've read that you talk a lot about the 6 elements of trust. Would you share some of those with us?
Yeah, so those were just some that I was sharing.
Oh, well,
That's what got me thinking
make
about
sure you
it.
got them all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, competence, integrity, communication, reliability.
Mm-hmm.
That's the doing what you say you're going to do, and doing all those things consistently. Those are some.
Consistency. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how do you create a culture of trust if you don't have one? How does that manifest?
It's interesting because I don't know if there is any culture that is completely devoid of trust.
Mm-hmm.
It's tempting to say that because we've got nice labels like a toxic work environment and toxic cultures and things like that. I instead, and maybe I'm Pollyanna, but I think there are pockets of trust, at least in a tough work environment, and that may be ensconced in the individual. But first, it's adopting the mindset that trust is a critical component of doing business, or of how we interact with each other. There's a really great, and maybe you both have seen it, Simon Sinek video that talks about the tension between performance and trust. Have you seen this one with the Navy SEALs? It's fantastic. Everybody go look for it. But what he says is he was doing some work with the Navy SEALs, and he said, how do you identify a high performer? And basically what the SEALs say is, you've got people who are high performers, but low on trust. Those tend to be the toxic people. We would rather have folks who are higher on trust and maybe mid-level performers or low performers, because that trust is so critical in saving a life and doing what you need to do in order to support one another.
You got to trust your team. Yeah, that they're going to have your back. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I don't know about you, but I haven't seen a lot of performance management systems that have trust laid out as a line in a performance.
Agreed. Yeah. And to prove your point that too, toxic workplaces, if you're in one, it's like, so what you have people then that will go have sideways conversations with somebody else in the company, not with somebody who can actually solve the problem or do something about it. But that does show that there is a level of trust. It's just not with your boss or your boss's boss or the company or whatever, but it's, a colleague or somebody else that within the company, because you're bitching to them about how toxic the workplace is and thus adding to the toxicity. So. But there is some trust there, but it's just not, where we want it to be.
Well,
I
and,
have, oh, go ahead.
sorry, one other thought for you, Audrey, to your question. I think another great place to start is with transparency.
Hmm.
So if you do have an environment that does feel fairly toxic and really low in trust, leadership can start with transparency and being more honest, even if it's not great business news, but being more clear, or even if it's not the popular, response. I'm thinking about all of the businesses that are bringing people back into the office. Now, I'm not going to comment what I think about it. It's up to the individual, business, what they think their culture needs. And so for those, if a business thinks their culture or their productivity needs 4 or 5 days a week in the office, then that's absolutely fine. But tell people why.
Mhm.
That's what often gets missed is they aren't transparent with the why of it. So it feels arbitrary. And then the people who don't want to come in are feeling like you don't trust me because, by the way, in 2020, I was the most productive I've ever been in my entire life.
One thing that popped in my head when I knew we were going to talk to you today is, I hope you guys both think this is a good question. You can help me flesh it out.
Your first
What
marriage.
if, no, although that was a problem too, try. But manage, so let's say I'm a manager and I am in a position and a job role that is inherently has distrust attached to it. So an example of that might be somebody who works in the top of the food chain in a quality assurance department, or you're the head of HR. So you're showing people the door. People know like you're super friendly when you're onboarding me, but then when you're firing me, how do you work around that if your job has a distrust somewhat baked in, possibly somewhere along the line in what you do?
Yeah. Yeah. And
Is
think about the quality assurance idea because you're looking for faults. You're
right.
looking,
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
looking for errors and mistakes and broken things. We have to attach it to purpose. So we
Okay.
have to attach it to a why because we're not looking for errors just to make people feel bad. We're looking for errors to ensure that our product or our service does what it's going to do for our buyers in the best way possible.
Right.
Once you frame it with the why and what we're trying to accomplish with it, it doesn't feel so icky.
And your delivery system ultimately for
Mhm.
the function that is baked in with it.
Right, right, exactly.
Yeah.
And it also is about how. So just aside from quality assurance, I think about mistakes. And people always say, "Oh, treat mistakes as a learning moment." And I say that, oh, as if that's a bad thing to do. I totally agree with the thought. I just think most people don't know how to
Right.
do that. Most people don't know how. So they'll ask a question of, well, how did you get here? And it usually has some sort of condescending tone like that. Instead of saying, okay, this is not the outcome that we hoped for. What lessons or observations should we take away from the experience that you've had so that we can do it differently next time? It's a
Mhm.
much more neutral way of looking at how someone got to the wrong outcome rather than saying, well, what'd you do wrong? Kind of thing.
Mhm.
What's your take on using the word why to start questions? Because my experience is that seems to be pretty judgmental if you don't ask it with the right tonality. But it's like what do you feel about using that word at all?
I love the interest. I love the interest of why, because it's really to get people talking. And so I've practiced saying why without judgment. It's stood in the mirror and practiced. That said, if someone is unable to get to a neutral place of simply asking the question, and by the way, some people infer it negative because they're feeling
Hmm.
weird or they know they could have done better or what have you. I simply say, tell me more.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Just tell me more. Help me understand more. Or how did it go this way? Or, so I substitute other kinds of questions that get at the same interest.
Your comment about transparency got me thinking about a mentor of mine a few years ago, and he explained trust as sort of like this mason jar. It's like a bank that you put coins in, basically, as you build trust. But when you do something then to break someone's trust, you knock the jar over and coins spill out. I don't know if you ever heard that, but
Huh?
so if trust has been broken, and one of the things that people don't know how to do is how to repair broken trust. So, what are some of the first steps that need to happen to rebuild broken trust?
Yeah. Well, Lee, I think there's two sides of this. So it's either you have broken the trust or your business has broken the trust with a client or a customer. So there's that. How do I own it and take responsibility for it? But there's also, especially in a one-on-one dynamic, there's the person whose trust has been broken.
Mm-hmm.
They have responsibility to repair too. And most people don't see themselves that way. They think the onus is only on the person who's broken the trust. So let me start there really briefly. What I'm trying to teach people is I'm trying to prevent them from saying, well, you know what? Audrey messed up. I will never work with her again. I just write her off completely. What I can't trust is maybe she missed the deadline, so I can't trust her time management, but she delivers great quality work. So I need to learn to discern the difference of what's breaking down for me in that trust dynamic. And then I need to tell her. I need to give her a chance. So I need to give her that feedback and then give her continued opportunities and say, let's work on the time management piece. I also need to look at myself to say, was I clear about my deadline? Or was my deadline realistic? Maybe it was just not reachable. So there's that side of it. Now, if we look at the other side, which is what most people are asking about, I think it's the typical apologize or acknowledge the mistake. But also what I tell people to do is to acknowledge the impact. So if I say to you, Lee, gosh, you know what? I realize that missing that deadline has caused you to miss your deadlines, and you are now having to scramble to get this done, to get it to your leadership team. Boom. So once I own that and acknowledge that impact, typically that diffuses the emotion, that helps you understand that I understand, and it also demonstrates that I care.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's the typical, okay, let's talk about some solutions. I also encourage people to give folks a couple of choices of solutions, because then it feels like you're back in control. And then if it's a repeatable thing, again, share prevention strategy.
Well, that's a really good demonstration of empathy too. That I understand, what life is in your shoes, and I care about that.
Yeah.
But I come out of the public relations side of things, when we tell people get out in front of the story, or people will fill in the gaps in their own head about what they think is really going on. Yeah. So Lee has mentored me in assuming positive intent at all times. So I feel like it should be that you should get out, just go in and have a conversation. And I'm sure the person who the aggrieved party is assuming negative intent. So explain why you were late. Maybe your kid got the measles and you had to go to the ER. I mean, it could be something that simple. Is that a way to diffuse everything? Is get out in front of it early before it sort of blows up?
Absolutely. It is back to a saying I said earlier, people hate surprises.
Right.
They'll deal with bad news much better than they'll deal with surprises.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, when you try to run and hide, it's one of those things that the cover up is always worse than the initial crime, right? Especially when it comes to trust. Yeah.
Or coming to you with my tail between my legs.
How does this work in a larger, more complex organization with, say, 100 or more employees, or even look at Jamie Dimon at, JP Morgan Chase telling them all to come back to work, and then somebody recording his phone call where he's bloviating about it, and now that trust is gone with him and his line employees. I mean, it seems like the bigger your business, the harder it is to make sure this is in the culture and active and a living, breathing thing for everyone.
Well, and so that's why you have to, if you are the leader of that ship, or the captain of that ship, to be more appropriate to the metaphor, you've just got to mind your P's and Q's and be very conscious of what you're doing. Because in comparison, I think about a Richard Branson. Mm-hmm. Now, I've not worked at Virgin, but I can only imagine what it's like to work there. I mean, it looks like it's a ton of fun, and people really like working there. And every experience I've had with that brand in some way, shape, or form has been a really delightful experience as a customer, of it. So I think as there's examples on both sides that can emulate the walk the talk behavior and the outcome of that.
I mean, there's a situation where it could just be as simple as I make a decision that you don't like or that you don't agree with or whatever. So now trust somehow is eroded just because, what I said is not what you want to believe to be true.
Yeah. Well, and I would even step back half a step further, because I tell managers, I said, one way to build trust is to empower people to make decisions or be involved in the decision making. And people are like, huh? And I said, well, ask their opinion. Now, you can't do this in every decision, and maybe not large company-wide decisions, but there's still ways to get people's input on opinions. So first, I'm going to ask your perspective of, hey, what do you think about this? And then I may go away and make the decision. But then when I come, what I need to do, which most people don't do, is circle back to you and say, here's why I went the way I did. And maybe I've incorporated your input or I've incorporated part of it. Or if I haven't at all, I can explain to you why I didn't. And so you still feel valued, but you now have learned discretion and discernment to see why I went another way.
It's sort of like asking those employee engagement survey questions or whatever, where they answer the questions and like that, and you do absolutely nothing with the results.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Lee and I joke that the absolute 180 of what you just, that was a great tip, is the manager who says, thanks a lot, Tracy. And if I'd like your opinion, I'll be happy to give it to you. And
Right.
we've got about a minute left. Joyachiever.com is the website, right? So Lee, I'll let you grab the last question in our time with Tracy.
I'm curious about your take on the role of charisma and trust, and if are charismatic people, is it easier for them to build trust, or do they have certain challenges as well because they are charismatic?
I think it depends on the intent of that human. Because I could think of charismatic people that I certainly trusted, but I can also think of charismatic people who I certainly did not trust. So likability always helps. Energy, being drawn to an energy initially, it may make me not feel like trust is as risky, but it's what that person does with my trust that drives how I feel about them ultimately.
Wow, that's a good. I did a media tour once with a guy. Lee knows this. I took a guy around Denver for a date, spent 10 hours with this guy, and the energy coming off of him was the most negative. He's the only person I've ever met like this. I could not wait to drop him off at the airport. It was so off-putting. It was weird, but like you could feel it. So no names to be named. But that is absolutely a thing. That's the only reason I share that. So
yeah, totally.
Well, this has been great. Fast 20 minutes. And I wish you best of luck with the book, which is entitled, again, everyone, Trust Me, The Insider's Guide to Being a Go-To Person at Work. Be that person. And Tracy, thank you so much. We finally got it done.
Thank you both.
Glad we got to have you on the show.
Me too.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and recommend on iTunes, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more great information at salesfuel.com.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.